In a previous video, we talked about how we can manage the API calls in a nice way in Next.js applications, more specifically speaking, large Next.js projects, for example, admin panels and things like that. Today, we will talk about, in continuation of that, uh, about how we can manage the forms easily in a large Next.js admin project. So all of the codes for this tutorial or for this demo will be shared in the description. We have an admin template there. It's just to give an idea of how things work. So I will explain why it helps, and I will then explain how we can achieve it. So first things first, what do you want when you are using forms, right? We want a couple of things. First thing is we want consistency. So if it's a large admin project, which means most of the pages will have some kind of form, and we want to have the same look and feel and the same behavior across all of the whole project. We don't want different people working on different parts and messing things up. That is the first objective. Second thing we want is we want this thing to be really easy to use. Forms are very notorious in this aspect because sometimes there are a lot of verbosity. You have to add the labels, you have to add the error states, everything manually. So usually it can get messy really fast. And final thing is customizability. So it should be easy to use and should be possible to be customized as well. To show you what kind of form we are talking about, so this is the form that I will describe today, how it works. So you will see that in this form we have a lot of different type of fields. We have some text field, some text area, we have some field with some email validation, number field, we have multi-select drop downs, right? We have switches, we have tabs, we have date picker, we have searchable drop down, things like that. It really doesn't matter which element you're using, because once you will learn the basic, you can use any kind of form element in a consistent way. See, if we submit here, it says that it must be at least 10 characters, so you can see the validation is also working. So all of the values will be here, and that's what we want. And we want this thing to be easy to use. So let me show you the code so that you understand how much code it took us to get here. So this is this form component. This whole form component takes around, I would say, 20 to 30 lines of code. So that's it. But we have so many fields here with all the validations and everything. Not exactly 30 lines, because to achieve this we had to do some other codes somewhere else. But inside your component, it becomes really clean and easy to manage, because you don't have too many things going on here, and really easy to understand. Now let's go to the theory, a little bit of theory, what we are talking about, how we can structure these things. The first thing is we should have a page. So this is the page, right? Or this is the component, or whatever, it really doesn't matter. It can be called page or component. And this page or component will use some elements, some form elements. So usually what I do, I name the elements consistently. For example, if it's an input field, I call it input element. If it's a text area field, I call it text area element, something like that. You can use your own convention. And these elements then use different UI libraries to render these things. In this specific case, I'm using shared CN forms, but let's see, if you're using Ant design, you can customize it inside this element. It really doesn't matter which UI library you are using. Let's say, for example, in this specific case, everything is shared CN except this one. As you can see, this is React. It is a separate library to have multi-select dropdowns. So as you can see, inside this same form, you can use different UI libraries. So it's kind of an abstraction, which is a good abstraction in my opinion. So separating your UI from the underlying implementation. So that's what this element part does. This element layer also have all the validations, all the error handling, everything baked into it. So you just write these elements once and that's it. So just to give you an example, let's say we have this input element. We write this element once, and then everywhere you just put this single line, you specify the name and the label and the placeholder, and it just works, right? So that's what's nice about this thing. Now let's talk about how we can achieve this. That's the third part. So to achieve this, we have to use React hook library, which is the most popular form library, sorry, React hook form, which is in my opinion, the most powerful form handling library in React. So you should really learn about it if you haven't already. And for validation, we can use Zod. It also supports YAP. So it really doesn't matter which one you are using. In this specific example, we are using Zod. So Zod and React hook form. So the first thing and another concept that you will need is this context thing in React. So as you can see, if we want to control all of the error handling in this layer, right, then we can't have the form functions available in this layer. I mean, we can pass down into the element, but that will be again a messy thing in my opinion. So what I do usually is I wrap this whole thing in a context, which means whatever is available at the top layer is also available in this layer and in this layer. So you just only write it at the top layer and you don't have to do any prop drilling. And to show that, notice here, we are not passing any kind of ref, we are not passing any kind of form function. This is just a plain component that only takes the name and the label. You don't even need to pass this placeholder, or you don't even need to pass this label thing as well. Only passing name is enough for this component to work. So how we are achieving this is we are wrapping this whole thing in a context, and context ensures that all of the functions that are required in this form are available in element and the UI layer as well. To show you in the code, the first thing you need to do is you will define a schema. So this schema thing is kind of optional in a way, but it is required in most large applications. This layer will, or this schema will determine the validations. For example, earlier we have seen that the description field failed because it wasn't having length 10, and we actually defined that here. And same goes for all of the other fields as well. We can validate for email, we can validate for enum, we can validate for date, everything, right? Then what you will do here is you will use this use form hook from React hook form. You pass some default values, right, and you tell the form to resolve the schema from the using the Zod resolver. And then you have this on submit function where you will handle whatever you want to do with the values, and that's about it. Finally, if we come here, you will see we are passing this thing, this form thing, and this form component. If you come here, you will see that this form is coming from components UI form. So this is, again, as you can see, we have all of the providers configured here automatically. So we have the use form field, everything automatically customized here, so you don't have to worry about that. And we are actually using Shatsian form for this one. So that's the only setup you have to do in the page level. So two things: you define the schema, you call the function. That's about it. Second thing is, as you can see, we are passing this prop here only inside the form, which means the underlying form is actually using all of the fields from this form field and inputting this in the underlying elements. Now let's notice, or let's explore one of the components. You will see we are using a special field called form field. Again, this is coming from Shatsian form, and in this control you can see I'm using use form context, which is coming from React hook form. As I mentioned earlier, React hook form automatically passes every function required down all of these elements. So at any layer you can just call this hook and get this control function out, and then you can use this control field to add any field here. So this form field, inside this form field you can render anything. As you can see, I'm rendering the label, the input, and description, and everything. And if you notice closely, you will see that this input is where you can add anything. For example, if we see the input text area element, you will see we are just using text area here. So input element uses input here, text area element uses text area here. That's the only difference. Everything else stays the same, right? If you want to add any UI customization, you can pass an extra class name or things like that. But that's essentially it. It is the same thing for all of the components. So we have this radio group, we have this switch element, we have this select element, right? Everything is rendered in the same way. We have a form field, we pass the control, and that's about it. So that takes care of this element thing. And the UI library, again, as mentioned, You can use shared scene, you can use ant design, it really doesn't matter as long as you are configuring these two sections correctly. The video got a little bit long, so sorry about that. Thank you for watching so far. So to summarize, for handling forms efficiently, cleanly in a large project, what you can do usually is you use React hook form using Zod resolver, and you can abstract all of the complexities. So later, if you want to switch out these UI libraries, you just only have to change in one place, that is this element. You don't have to go to the whole project and change everywhere, which means it is really easy to use and customizable. So we achieve all of our goals here. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.